Zoning Board of East Hampton, you are live and you are being recorded.
Okay, thank you, Michael and LTV. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Town of East Hampton Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for July 13th, 2021. It's great to be here in public and to see you all in the audience and see my vice chair and board member Teresa Berger and Tim Brenneman and Ed Johan's first time here, correct, Ed?
That's correct, yes.
And as well, we have to give a shout out to our secretary, Kyle Warple, who's his first time in the chair over there. It's been a long time. We were just reminiscing, but it's great to be back. And as usual, we have a full agenda, so we will get going. First, as you see, there is a canceled public hearing. It is Pauline Post at 9 Quadrant Hill Road, East Hampton, tax map number 300-55-1-13. And this has been rescheduled at the request of the applicant. It will be heard September 28th, 2021. So we'll move on to our scheduled public hearing. The first is, the applicant is Marshall J. Gluck at 29 Sarah's Path in Waynescott, tax map number 300-197-3-60. And the lot size and location here, 42,250 square feet at 29 Sarah's Path in Westwood, section 2, lots 111 and 112, filed 1963, map number 3704, Waynescott, tax map number again 300-197-360. And the description is to construct a 504 square foot garage within front yard setbacks. The relief sought, one variance of 29.5 feet from 255-11-10 of the town code dimensional regulations to allow the garage to be constructed 20.5 feet from the front yard west lot line where 50 feet is required and any other relief necessary. The zoning district here is a B residence zone. The flood district is X, is the flood zone, and the secret class is type 2. And council, do we have a proper affidavit of service and posting?
I have an affidavit that the mailings went out on the second day of July. Thank you. Here's the no problem. And that the posting was also done on the second day of July. So everything appears to be in order. That in the file.
Okay, thank you, council. Okay, this is in board member Tim Brennan's Waynescott district. Tim, if you would, please.
Sure. So I visited the property this morning. As you know from reading the TAM, this property has 2 front yard setbacks. So this was posted on Sayers Path. I'll have a photo later of the posting on Westwood Road. I've just expanded that same photograph to include the location and the garage that's in question on this application. I'm going to walk you around the property a little bit, but I'll get back to this location in a couple of minutes. So this is Sayers Path. I am looking basically south at this point along Sayers Path, and then I turn and go 180 degrees and I look north. You can see split rail fence and the plantings along the property. That's the first of the 2 driveway entrances that you see in the distance there. Next, Michael. So this is the first entrance. The driveway is a circle. So I snapped that and then continued. And then this is the other side, just to give you a sense for what it looks along the property line. Now I've gone up to the corner and looked down Westwood Road. Really, property is set back from the road intersection here. Now I've walked in to the property, just took a photograph of the front of the house. And then I panned to my immediate right just to get a look at both the first glimpse of the topography as well as the vegetation that sits between the house and the garage down below. So that's the garage down in the distance. And that's a little closer view of it. And now I go back down to the garage. And again, this is the existing garage. The new proposed garage is essentially in the same place. It's set back slightly and it's wider. In this case, this is an existing structure built on cinder blocks. There's a reference in the TAM with regard to the pool equipment in the back. So I walked behind the garage to take a quick snap of that. That's, I don't know how many feet, probably 8 to 10 feet behind the current garage structure. And then the next photo I walked across, and this is the walkway, and this is where you start to get a sense for the terrain. There's reference in the memorandum of law about the terrain behind the garage, and I thought this gave a little illustration. This is the walkway between the garage and the main house. And then last photo, I went around to Westwood Road, and it was properly noticed there, and I tried to get a shot to give you a sense of what kind of vegetation existed between the road and the home. And that was it.
Great, thank you, Tim, for that thorough report. Board members, any questions on the field report? Okay, so we will go to the applicant or the applicant's agent. This evening. Good evening, David. Nice to see you, David.
Nice to see you, person. Good to be seen. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is David Egan from David Egan Associates, LLC, the applicant, Marshall Clark. A little bit of background. Mr. Clark from Marshall is my neighbor. Has lived in this house for over 40 years. This is a pretty straightforward application. He's looking to make a more serviceable garage. He's here more than he has been. And he has 2 cars, and he likes, and this structure, as you saw, is ending its useful life. There's some unique history and circumstances here, which is, I think, the reason why I'm here, because otherwise I probably wouldn't have come. There's a prior examination from this board from April 1992, which legalized the present structure in the present location. So it's been there, it's actually there before that, so it's been there for over 30 years, I think, in that one spot, basically. As already been noted by the member, there's 2 front yards in this property. This property is a shy acre. Since the last time we legalized this, the code has changed. It went from 30 feet to 50 feet front yard setback. So that 50-foot setback with a 20-foot increase to the yards really had a serious impact on this property. In the 92 determination, this board found both the 2-yard front yard setbacks and the presence of the bank behind the garage as I think distinguishing features and factors of what you attempted granting the relief back then. And it's substantially the same place. I think we're looking to go back. We tried to move back as far as we could. Picked up, I think, a shy foot maybe. But I think there's a ridge, a natural occurring ridge. This part of Waynescott is flat as a board, as you know. Other than Strong Hill, we don't really have those. But there's a ridge that runs directly behind this garage that runs through the Westwood. It actually must have been taken out for the road, unless this is on the other side of the street. Because the houses behind him on Westwood are the only ones that I know of in our neighborhood that have retaining walls. So that tells us that the topography is different. So that's sort of why I think it's in this spot. It's well screened. There's very mature screening to the neighbor to the south. And it kind of sits in a hollow in a way. I mean, I pass this often, and you have to really look to see what's there. So it's not prominent, it's not sticking out to the neighborhood. There's also some trees that have matured since '92. That kind of limit its location, so he's kind of stuck in this position. I'd just like to note a couple of things about the property. There's no protected features on this property under the code, which I know the board spends a lot of its time protecting. So basically what we're seeking to do is build a new garage, which will be a two-stall garage, 15.5 feet from the property line, when the existing one is 14.6. The 92 approval permitted a garage of 500 square feet, and the one we're proposing is 504. It's like maybe the smallest possible to get two cars.
Did you say 540, you say?
504 feet. So it's essentially the same size and location that was approved back in '92. So it's really where
You're 20 feet from the line, right? 20.5?
Yes.
Okay, because you said 14, which was the
Oh,
other one.
I'm sorry. Thank you for
Just making
correcting
sure, yes.
No,
20.
thank you.
Yes.
Yes, we are, 20 feet, 20.5.
I was just looking that up because that didn't
Thank
sound
you.
right to me.
Thank you, I'm sorry. Again, in '92, the board made the determination code was slightly different then. I think the standards have changed to state law and it reflected in code changes, but they essentially say the same thing, that this building in this location would not injure the neighborhood in which it was located, would not otherwise be harmful to the general public. In other words, it's slightly different now, but I don't have to tell you what the standards are. You know them better than I do. So this prior memorandum, the prior determination has precedent for value in law. If there's no substantial changes in an application, it makes it more difficult for the board to change its determination from the prior one. And if there's been no substantial change in circumstances, it also makes it more difficult for the board to change its determination. And the classic example of change the circumstances in the case law is a change in the character of the neighborhood. This neighborhood really hasn't changed much at all. The only change in this part of the neighborhood is since we built this house, was a couple houses were built across the street when that subdivision was built out. But otherwise, this neighborhood's really matured and stayed pretty much the same. So there's been no great change. I refer to the memorandum of law that I submitted, which sets forth all the standards. I prefer not to read them back to you.
Thank you.
So I'd like to save your time and mine if you don't mind.
We appreciate it.
Okay, and then the last point I just wanted to talk to you about is this board, I think rightfully is concerned at times about creating precedent. I think here, because of the prior determination and because of the natural features on the property, I think this would be very easily distinguished by the board. So I don't think it would lead to as far as applications from saying I want the same thing. I think this is really sort of a unique situation. Otherwise, I might be willing to encourage them to do the application. So that's all I have. If you have any questions, I was glad to answer them.
David? I don't have any questions, board members.
I have some questions I'm a little unclear about. In the TAM, it says that the currently existing garage is 280 square feet. And 14.
Yeah, there's a strange discrepancy here.
20.5 is the proposed for the new garage.
No, 504 is the
500.
proposed. The 92 determination approved the 500 square foot one, but it's kind of, doesn't make sense because the building is less. The building is 280 something.
They only built the 280 square foot.
Yeah,
They had
basically.
permission to build it.
Yeah, and they did. So, I mean, I think he built what he needed at the time. I think he owned one car. He was using it as a weekend home.
Yeah.
He's retired, almost retired now. He's here full time. So he's matured with the house, basically.
So
So,
right now, the garage that exists,
It's
14.6.
well, actually, it's 20. Yeah, I think it
Aren't
is.
you improving this?
What?
Here's like you're improving it slightly. What it is, isn't it?
The
Yeah.
zoning change.
Yeah, the set-
I know the zoning change.
Yeah.
But the setback to the stairs path is greater than what's existing, correct?
Right.
Dave, if you look at the
That's right.
survey, the setback, the proposed setback is greater
Yes,
Yeah,
than the stairs path.
yes,
yeah.
The C of O says it's a 280 square foot.
yeah, which I believe it is. It's not a 500 square foot garage.
Yeah.
Sure. And you would have, in theory, without coming to you, if it's in the right location, to build a 600 square foot, you try to build it as limited to size as possible, to make it useful.
Mhm.
Um,
Understood. Tim, anyone else have a question? Okay.
Well, there's also a statement in the TAM about the sight lines at the intersection, suggesting maybe that it should be farther back. Can comment about
The sight line from that intersection?
sight lines at the intersections,
Stairs and west.
Sayers and Westwood.
I tell you, I live down the street.
Comment on
Here is where the house, the thing is Westwood. I'll be honest with you, I don't think this is implicated by that intersection. I mean, I travel this road more oftentimes than I want to count sometimes. Our home is down at 46 Sayers Path. I have a flag lot that goes west, so I pass this often. And I don't think this is really implicated at all, honest with you. And I
Anything else,
walk through
Jerry?
streets, I walk my dogs on the streets.
Sure.
I never have an issue with sightlines and that.
Sure. Well, thank you, David. I appreciate it. Let's hear from the planning department
I
next.
appreciate it, thank you.
Michael, nice to have you back in person. Thank you, Michael. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. Evening board members, I really don't have too much to add on this one. It does have a bit of a unique history. They have that prior determination that approved the 500 square foot garage, 14.6 feet. This is now 504 square feet, moving farther back to address Member Berger's comment about the sightlines. It was more in the assessment to kind of as a, we wouldn't want it closer to the intersection. They're limited by the two front yards, having the the garage significantly closer to the intersection at Sayers Path could become an issue. That was the comment on that in the assessment. Something that we really don't have too much, and leave myself available for any questions.
Thank you, Michael. Question?
Yes, Michael, it was mentioned by the applicant's representative that the garage was well screened to the neighbor. Did you get that right? Is that what it said? I think it said it was well screened to the neighbor who was insured. Can you comment on that? Do you know?
The neighbor to the south,
Well, yeah, not the neighbor, I guess that would be to the south.
I mean, I believe it meets the side yard setback to that. But in the aerials here, let's see. There appears to be some mature vegetation in and around the area. Anything larger or closer would need additional variances to that southern property line.
And in the TAM, you made the suggestion that the garage could have been moved or require moving the.
You would likely require moving the existing pool equipment. They've got it backed up to a couple of feet behind the pool equipment, or in front of the pool equipment rather. And meeting a setback would require having to move the pool equipment entirely. And again, with a heater there, you do have concern with separation of structures. So we probably want about 5 feet.
It would be possible to have it meet the setback if the pool equipment was moved.
If the pool equipment were moved, yeah, they could meet the setback. It would likely be, really more in the backyard of that property.
Okay, thanks, Ed. Let's see if anyone in the public who wishes to comment on this application. No? Okay, seeing none. Close this out, please.
Sure. So on the matter of Marshall Luck at 29 Sayers Path, Wainscott, tax map number 300-197-3-60. I make a motion to close the public hearing in the public record.
Second.
Concur.
And I concur. Thanks, Tim. Thank you, Michael. Thank you all. Thank you, David.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, we will move on next. We have, our next public hearing is Henry C. Smither at 63 Soundview Drive, Montauk, tax map number 300-5-2-3. And the lot size and location here, 11,404 square feet at 63 Soundview Drive, Soundview Estates, lot 17, Montauk, tax map number 300-5-2-3. Description here is to construct a two-story, 2,668 square foot residence with 554 square feet of total first and second floor decking, driveway and sanitary system on a parcel of land containing beach vegetation and dunes. Relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-4-20, variances from 255-11-10, dimensional regulations, maximum height, and other relief necessary. One variance of 0.7 feet is required from 255-11-10 maximum height for the residence to be constructed 30.7 feet above natural grade, where 30 feet is the maximum. This is in a B residence zone. The flood zone is X, and the secret class is type 2. And council, do we have the proper affidavit of service and posting?
Have an affidavit that the mailings were done on the second day of July and that posting was done on the second day of July. Paperwork appears to be in order.
Okay. Okay, this is in Board Member Berger's Montauk District. Terry, I believe you have a full report. Thank you.
This is the official notice of the posting. It was properly noticed. This is an unimproved lot. Application for a home to be built on. This is to the west, and it's pretty, the house to the west is under some type of renovation or construction. And the property line is just to the right of that dirt driveway. You can see on the survey where it angles in a little bit to the property line. And then we'll go straight back. Next. Now this is from that same viewpoint, but I'm turning a little bit east. You can see the nearest neighbor to the east, which is another new home under construction. Not completely finished yet. And next, and now it's a shot where just shoot down east the Soundview Drive, the southern side of Soundview Drive toward the east. And you can see somewhat of the character of the neighborhood with the other homes there. Then I'm going to turn around and shoot down in the westerly direction on Soundview Drive, Mike. And that's it. And a little bit less smaller homes down in that area toward the more legacy side of Culloden. And next. Now this is, I'm standing at the posting and I'm just turned facing north, and it's the opposite side of Soundview with the bay beyond that in the photo. And this is a house to the west of that on the northern side of Soundview Drive. Next. Okay, and now there were a lot of references in the tab to shrubbery. So I was trying to get a feel for some of that and I'll show you some of the pines and oak that are on the property. I'm still near the northern end of the property at this point. And then we'll walk in, there's a little bit of a space to walk into where there's some sandier area. So next, another shot in that open space, kind of again, looking toward the southeast. Next. And this is a little sandy area at the front portion of the property on the Soundview Drive end of it. Next. And now I'm standing at that spot and just turning around and shooting toward the north of that same area. You can see the sand path up to there and shrubbery all around it. And next. And this on the eastern end, rather, on Soundview, there's this cleared space along the property line. That fence in the property line is from the house to the east. And the stockade fence is the stockade fence on the survey at the rear of the applicant's property. So I walked up there. And so our references to the low point on the property and in the TAM that the vegetation is more dune-like and more natural, native plantings and shrubbery that's in there. So I'm gonna walk up to that stand next. And then I tried to get a picture of the dune up there, but it has all since overgrown. If you look at the addendum to the TAM, there's a better shot that actually you can see the sand on the dune. And then I turned and walked back down. And on the right side there, there is that new house that's being built. Some of the photos that are in the record don't show a pool, but there is a pool that has been built as part of that. Just kind of where that post is up on the eastern side of it. And you walk back down to Soundview Drive. And that's just the shot. You can see what looks like a pool house there right on the immediate right from the house. And I believe on the left is that area where the applicant's house is going to be constructed, if approved. And I continue back down. And that's just another shot showing the property to the west. The west, that might be the east. Just another view of it from the applicant's property. And I don't know if that's that last one.
Thank you, Terry, for that thorough report. Any questions, board members? No? Okay. Good evening, Lori.
Hello,
Nice to see you as well.
thank you, me too.
I'll go ahead and swear you in, if you please. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Go ahead, please. Good evening.
Good evening. So, the Smither Worth family's owned this lot for over 60 years. And it's always been the dream of Cynthia Worth Smither, the daughter of Ernest Worth, who purchased the property in 1958 to build a quaint craftsman-style beach home. This is one of the last undeveloped lots in the Soundview Estates, and with the help of Cynthia's 3 sons, this dream is now getting closer to reality. Unfortunately, due to the topographic undulations, basically a 1 foot to 2 foot deep ditch swale, more than 10 feet inside the property line from the front, which may not have been created naturally. The home's front ridge sits right above the existing ditch / swale, causing a 30-foot existing natural grade, causing the 30-foot existing natural grade height to be exceeded by 8 inches. Nowhere does the home exceed 30 feet when measured from any of the 4 property lines, nor does it exceed the 30 feet if calculated from existing average grade. In fact, the home is approximately 12 inches to 18 inches below the maximum height limit if measured by existing property line grades, other than in the one spot, which is the middle of the front of the house. We do not feel that 8 inches of height on the front of the house over the low spot will have any obstruction of light, airflows, or views by the neighbors, and the home's design character fits in well within the existing neighborhood structure. As you may be aware, the proposed home is prefabricated, which is delivered to the site in 4 separate furnished units and then erected or assembled on site. The Smither family chose a prefabricated home because it takes far less time to construct and greatly minimizes construction waste and construction site impacts to the neighbors and the neighborhood. However, with prefabrication comes limitations to being able to completely modify the design. For example, you can't eliminate the double stacked ceiling / floor joists due to rigidity required during transportation and erection. Knowing that we wanted to do everything to avoid this variance request, the following revisions have already been made to reduce the height. They've lowered the foundation as far as engineering would allow. They reduced the roof pitch. They relocated the house on the lot, and they evaluated ceiling heights. The interior ceiling heights of the home are only 8 feet. Anything less than that would no longer make this home desirable to live in. Based on this information, we're requesting an 8-inch height variance as measured from existing natural grade as part of the pending natural resources special permit application, and the applicants are amenable to all of the mitigation recommended in the TAM.
Thank you, Lori. Any questions? Board members for Lori?
The survey is with the proposed house in the new location. You said you
Correct.
relocated it.
Yes.
Where did you relocate it from?
You know what? I can't answer that because I wasn't involved at the beginning of this. They only brought me in when they realized they needed a variance and couldn't avoid it.
It's the latest survey.
That's the latest survey, yes.
Which one? What date?
July 2nd? July 2nd, 2019?
January 29th, 2021.
That's the
Oh,
one I
I'm
have.
sorry.
That's the one I
Yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Just for clarification, it's an 8-inch variance because we've noticed it for 7 inches, not that it's
No, they didn't notice it for 7 inches. They noticed it for 7.7 feet.
0.7 feet. Gotcha. All right,
0.7
I'm
feet.
good.
Right.
Do I have, all right,
It gets me every time too.
all right. I'm good now. All right.
Anything else, Tony?
No, thank you, Laurie.
No.
Okay, input, is that Terry?
Yeah, I'm good. I want to get my.
Ed, you good? Good. Okay. Good evening
board
again, Mike.
members. All you again for the planning department. So as Lori mentioned, this is one of the last vacant parcels along Soundview. There is, you can see on the survey, this central area where it has, the majority of the beach vegetation, the sand and existing dunes have remained. You can see the outsides, just from disturbance, they've kind of fragmented the dune that is kind of a remnant of what used to be there in this whole area. So the concern with this, from a natural resource special permit standard or viewpoint is, we want to minimize the amount of clearing of the existing vegetation, especially in this rear area where we have beach plum and beach heather. You can see on the survey, they've got that dune. They've got that dune shown in the back here where it increases. Unfortunately, what it means for this project is that there's a low spot because of the rolling dunes and in the area, and that's created the need for the variance. If they were to move the house further back, they could remove the need for the variance. However, it would involve a significant amount more clearing and effectively removal of some of the more pristine beach vegetation that exists on the lot. The majority of the outsides of it are a little more disturbed, a little more successional with scrub oak and some other and pitch pine and other species in the area. But that interior is kind of the remnants of what used to be there. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of the application there. Considering the level of development in the area, a lot of these lots were developed prior to natural resource special permit standard or prior to the environmental regulation by the town. A lot of them were cleared, graded over, fill brought in. So this is kind of one of the few remaining locations that have this feature. You can see it's fragmented from the piece behind it. There's a fence there currently. Of course, now I don't know how to do that.
Next to that, it seems to be completely clear.
That is kind of speaks to the situation is, that lot got had a lot inspection, and there was no beach vegetation. If you go back through the aerials, it's been completely cleared for a long time. So unfortunately, there is no regulatory component to that. That was able to just be done with a building permit.
What year is this? Because
This is 2021.
That's 2020?
This is 2021. These aerials were taken in March of 2021.
Oh,
Yeah,
because that pool is now completed and it has
Yes.
a pool house. And it's-
Yeah.
Yeah, they fell fast. So my question would be, how do we, as a board, protect the remaining beach vegetation when the lot next door is completely cleared? Can they come to us in the future? Can we get a possible easement on it or something like that to protect it?
Over the rear of the property?
Yeah.
Effectively right now, we could ask for an easement over it. As it stands right now, it is protected by code since it does contain beach vegetation and dunes. So any work that's going to be done on this lot will require a natural resources special permit from now and going forward. So it will come before, if they are prepared to do any work in the future, they would need to come before this board. The other option is to covenant and restriction the clearing boundary, so that this would remain the clearing boundary. Would be another option if you wanted to maintain what's intact.
And then, Michael, do you happen to know where they relocated it from?
I believe it was, if I remember correctly, and this is going back probably a year and a half, it was a little bit further north. And we had discussed this with the applicant. And I voiced my concerns about moving it further south and completely obliterating the dune that was there or is there currently and what that would entail. And, you know, so we had many discussions over the course of this application, you know, that ultimately resulted in the need for the variance because they really couldn't design around it with between the prefab. If they were to go to a stick built, then potentially, yeah, they could. But it's their desire to do this as a prefab.
And how does the size of this house compare to the one on the east and west? To those larger?
I'd say the one to the west, it's probably similar without, you know, maybe some of this decking and other stuff. The one to the east, that's definitely a larger house. Considering the level of development in the area, you know, it's you know, arguably a modest house for the area.
Michael, can I ask you, in Member Berger's photos, I believe it was the house to the east, seems to loom and pretty good height adjacent to this lot. That to the east, I mean, that one.
Yes.
With that house, in your opinion, I guess we have to be more precise to enter here, but that house looks to me as if it would have required a variance for height.
It would have the property not been completely regraded over flat at a higher elevation. Yeah, so if it had that low spot that this lot has, it likely would have required a variance.
But the photo we're looking at here would indicate to me that that house now would have required a pyramid variance.
Potentially, I'd have to look at the building department records and pull those, and I can do that for you if you'd like. But my assumption is that it meets the solar parts.
And please remind me, when was that constructed? Is that the one that we were discussing, this under construction?
Correct, the one directly to the east.
Well, the photo we're looking at, that pathway, if you could go back, that road, could you go back one photo, whoever, was that you? Yeah, thanks, Mike. Am I correct that in that photo, the cleared pathway going back on the center left, that's on the neighbor's property?
Potentially, we'd have, I mean, you could ask for it to be staked.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. Now I see where we are. Okay, thanks, Terry. Thanks, Mike.
With that, I leave myself.
Any other questions, board members? No? Okay, I think we're good. Is there anyone in the public who'd like to speak on this? Okay, Lori, if you, I don't think you have anything else to add? Okay. Terry, if you close this out then, please.
Yeah, do we want Michael to go out on that other house?
You know, that's not related to this, yes.
All right.
Thank you, Terry.
The matter of Henry Snicker, 63 South View Drive in Montauk, tax map 300-5-2-3, and make the motion to close the public hearing and to close the public record.
Second. Concur. I concur.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Lori. Thank you, Michael. Michael's keeping busy. Okay, our next final public hearing this evening. The applicants are Andrew Foglia, and Molly Nolan at 22 South Geneva Court in Montauk, tax map number 300-28-3-13. And the lot size and location is 13,797 square feet at 22 South Geneva Court, map of Montauk Beach Development Core, subdivision 6, filed 5/6/1927, Montauk tax map number 300-28-3-13. Description is to construct a two-story, 2,793 square foot residence with basement egress, 375 square feet of first and second story decking, attached 543 square feet garage, walkway, driveway, and sanitary system on a parcel of land within the town's jurisdiction of wetlands. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit, NRSP pursuant to 255-4-20, and variances from 255-4-30, minimum wetland setbacks of the town code, and any other relief necessary. The following variances are required. One, a 44-foot variance is required to install a sanitary system 106 feet from wetlands where a 150-foot setback is required. 2 and 3 variances of 25 feet and 21.3 feet are required to construct the residence and decking 75 feet and 78.7 feet respectively from freshwater wetlands where 100-foot setbacks are required. This is in a B residence zone. The flood zone is X and the secret class is type 2. And council, do we have a proper affidavit of service and posting?
I have a copy of the affidavit. I don't know if we have the original. Do you have the original? Original?
To,
You have it in the file? Okay, yeah, so it's already in the file that
Okay.
the mailings were done.
I see it here. I see it here.
Okay, second day of July, and that the posting was also done the second day of July, so the paperwork appears to be in order.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. Okay, this is in, Terry, I believe, did you handle this one as well?
well, remember, covered, I did the photos.
Okay, great. Okay, great, good. So you will do the field report then, or he? Ed?
No, Ed was
Ed,
already-
oh, good. Oh, great. Thanks, Ed. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
I visited the site today, and it's important to say at the beginning of the discussion, it's an unimproved site. It is very densely, it's densely vegetated. It's a real chore to try to get into any part of the site because the vegetation at this time of year is both very thick and very high and complex. And that'll be part of this discussion, just what we're looking at. It's important now to note that we're looking at 2 primary invasive species. They're very thick, and it's noted in the TAM stand of bamboo that stands up and upwards of 18, 20 feet in height. It's extremely thick, and it covers 2,500 feet. So it's a real factor in discussing how this property is to be developed for you. The other point here about this photo is to make is that this sign is basically set on the northern edge of the property line of the lot in question, the lot we're discussing. Some of these other shots will show a span of some additional vegetation that trails off to the north, and that is not part of our discussion. So next one. Here's again, I'm looking back now towards that you see that was walking stick, that shrub that's on the right, yeah, right there. That tree, however, would be the tree that's larger that's sitting there. This is, I think, an oak covered in an invasive vine. That tree is off of the property line. Next. Again, this gives you an indication. A lot of these photos are going to be the same, seeing that this is an extremely vegetated lot. It was not easy to do anything other than take roadside photos because, as you can tell, combination of vines, invasive, and native species that really killed it at this point. Next. This is peering through it. Believe, help me with this, Terry. You're looking at the roof line there? No, I don't.
No, no,
We're just
just,
looking at the depth of the land. You'll see from the survey that the lot is fairly deep, and we're just looking towards the back of it. The vegetation at the front of the lot that borders on the roadway is fairly low, and it gets larger as you proceed.
and just a comment, the photo before this was shot north and toward the wetlands that are on the survey
Okay,
and the house beyond it.
thank you. Next, please. Here we're looking at the property that is to the north, and that land there, as we turn and look, is associated with that house and not with this particular portion of it to our right, but most of that is associated with the other house to the north. Next.
That's it.
That's it? Yeah. So,
There were a couple more. I think you skipped the beginning 2 or 3. Yeah,
So
that's
they're
these.
looking down the street.
We-
This is to give you a good idea of that stand. We're looking from the neighbor's property. You can see that this bamboo stands up at a great height. It's extremely thick as bamboo will get. You would not walk through it very easily. And then, of course, it's one of the things that we'll discuss tonight in terms of approving or not approving this application. Next. Here we are looking back down to the south, from the,
To the
from, to the north, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Okay, we're looking to the north.
Yeah,
And
this-
the other next one, so it's looking back down to the south, next to it. No, again, it's not.
that's the neighbor across the
Yeah,
road.
that's the neighbor across the street. Now we're looking south, and you can see the improvement driveway of the neighbor immediately to the south on this lot. I guess that's it, we're back to it again.
Great. Okay, well, thank you both for that. Any questions, board members? Okay. Good evening, Andrew.
Good evening. Andrew Strong Law, 5 Boulder Road, East Hampton. I'm really happy to be here in person.
It's nice to see you. Pardon me for shredding your client's pronunciation of it, but folia, huh?
Yeah. So I prepared
Good evening,
comments to go about 3 hours tonight, just to get you guys used to staggering out of here. at 10 a.m.
Thanks for that.
All right. So John, as you said, this lot is a 13,797 square foot lot. It's right at the corner of Geneva Place and South Geneva Court. Geneva Place isn't an open road. The building coverage totals 1,530 square feet, and the total coverage is 2,175 square feet. The project is proposed as a 2-story single-family residence, and we've tried to reduce the footprint and put the GFA into 2 stories to reduce runoff connected to the wetlands. But that brings it very much in line with many of the neighbors. The GFA is 2,199 square feet, which make it a modest home for Andrew and Molly. I just stick with the first names. All right, so the site itself is encumbered by wetlands. The proposed structure is 77 feet at its nearest point to the wetlands, and the sanitary system is 113 feet. Those wetlands are not recognized by the New York State DEC, and we have a letter of non-jurisdiction to that effect. Now, my clients are both here tonight. They're both local year-round residents. Andrew's a fisherman out of Montauk, and Molly runs Montauk Downs Tennis. Part of the design of this house is specifically to accommodate their professions, which, and specifically the garage, which requires storage and storage of significant gear connected to how they make their livelihood. So I want to make that point and pause there. Because I'd like both Andrew and Molly to come up and just talk about this project directly, because this type of application is one of the ones that I find most enjoyable to bring to the board, because when done thoughtfully, I think that they can address the town's concern about this resource and provide a home for people who are undoubtedly going to make this community stronger. So without any further ado, I'll step down.
Okay, Andrew, while they're coming.
I'm going to come back and make just a couple points to wrap up.
Yeah, I just want to verify the date of the survey, and your submission was April 15, 2021.
Okay, good evening.
Good evening, board members.
I will let you know that unless you are an attorney, I have to swear you in, okay? So if you want to raise your right hand, you can both do it together. Molly, nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, or nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Excellent. And if you could just introduce yourself, well, you're the applicant, we know who you are, so it's good for the record. So go ahead and speak. Good evening.
Yeah, like you were saying, my name is Andrew and this is Molly. Montauk's a very special place to us. We both grew up there. We're back there living full time. And
You can pull the mic up if you want to stand up. Yeah, there you go.
there you go. And we're fortunate enough to, acquire this property, and we'd like to, we recently married last month,
Oh,
and
congratulations.
we'd love to start a family in Montauk and have that same experience. Our kids have that same experience that we had to grow up in a special place. And that's good.
Yeah, we're not, it's a home, we're not trying to build something that's getting flipped and yeah, we just want to be able to raise a family where we don't screw up.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Not good public speaking.
I didn't tell them that I was gonna make them come speak tonight, so that's mostly.
Those are our favorite speakers when they're short and sweet, you know.
Exactly.
That's all we need. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, so just with respect to the wetlands, there's a couple points that I want to make here that went into planning this project. Because we do take these wetlands seriously. We have carefully studied the town planner's memo and made several alterations based on it. And just to trot through those points. Currently, as the chairman pointed out, there's 2,500 square feet of bamboo that is extremely developed on the southeastern corner of the property that is going to be eradicated with this project. In addition, the applicants are revegetating. There's a cleared area closest to the wetlands on the northern part of this lot. You can see it. You can see it in the aerials, but it's connected to the northerly neighbor's property, and it's lawn at the moment. So that's going to be revegetated, and the applicants are offering a scenic easement over the area of the lot that's closest to the wetlands. So the scenic easement is 5,931 square feet, which is 42% of the entire lot. So right out of the gate, 42% of the entire lot is going to be protected, vegetated with natural vegetation in perpetuity. Now, directly responding to the planner's memo, the applicants have reduced the number of bedrooms from 4 to 3. Now, that obviously has effects on the septic flow, the nitrogen load, but it also very directly allows us to put a smaller septic system in and locate it 13 feet further away from the wetlands. And so that's something they're happy to do, and I think addresses some of the concern with the GFA, because although the GFA is 2,100 square feet with only 3 bedrooms, and with the septic system moved further away, we are trying to be as responsive and respectful as we can for wetlands. The other concern the planner raised rightfully was that we have this garage that they're going to use for storage, but that could be converted into livable space, and suddenly you could have a much bigger house than the board is anticipating. And I just want to reiterate that that space is designed for cars and for storage. That storage is connected to both the applicant's livelihood, and they would be willing to provide a covenant to the town, preventing it from ever being converted into habitable space, to sort of put their money where their mouth is on that point. Finally, the applicants have reduced the GFA a bit. And so the result, we believe, is a proposal that's been thoughtfully considered to specifically address this resource that the town wants to protect. It provides an easement nearest to the resource that protects the area in perpetuity. It eradicates bamboo, and it's trying to be responsive to the town planner's recommendations. What remains is a modest house for a family, storage space that's needed for their livelihood, and a house that's well within the character of other houses in the neighborhood, even those situated similarly to the wetlands. So that, again, the balancing test we laid out in our memo, and I won't get into that, but we submit that this meets that balancing test, and we ask the board to approve the project.
Okay, thank you, Andrew.
Yep.
Can I just,
Questions,
for
Terry?
clarification,
Yeah.
so what is the square footage of the house? You said you reduced it? Is it, it was
The square
originally
footage-
2,793?
The GFA is 2,199 square feet. I'm looking over towards Katie because she knows.
Yeah,
So it went from 2,793 to 2,199?
I'm not sure what it started at, but the final, the resting place
Okay.
is.
And the setback then that you need for the septic, you originally needed a 44 foot and now you just need a 31?
I'm trying to do the math while I speak. The septic is 113 feet. So 37, yeah, 37.
37. Okay.
And it also changed the setback from the wetland for where you cut back from the
Yeah.
garage and the bedroom that had been planned above it,
That's right.
So what is the setback then for the,
77 now.
So you cut back the bedroom?
We did. That was a hard conversation that was a hard conversation we had. I mean, I say that sort of in jest, but it was also something that they had to think about, because that's the bedroom.
okay, so the house is 23 but the decking remains still 21.3, correct?
This is just a checkpoint.
Decking 21.3?
They want to leave the CNR for the only 3 bedrooms to remain. I mean,
Yeah. What I think we're willing to covenant and right, is that the garage won't be converted into habitable space. Yeah. Yeah. But the septic system is a 3-bedroom septic.
the 3 bedrooms.
Right. So in order to get 4 bedrooms, we have to go back to the health department and presumably have to come back in front of this board because it would require expanding the septic system,
And the
which would
setbacks
encroach. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'd be back here.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions, board members?
I do have a question.
Go ahead.
Andrew.
Yeah.
Thank you. 2 things, just to be clear, in the TAM, of course, it said the house is 2793, you just discussed it's going down to 2199, that's a reduction of 594 feet. That was something that was done after the TAM was issued, that you came back and made this proposal?
Yes, after the town planner issued his memo, we had a meeting to try to reduce the
Right,
size.
and then there's a note in your, what is it, you have a project description, construction protocol, that you should take note that the garage is to be used professionally and not as much as for the vehicle. We've mentioned that, I know the applicant mentioned it, but that's what we're to take care of, that the garage is not going to be eliminated, because you claiming the thing here to be a hardship because they're going to store equipment in it.
That's right, fishing equipment and.
So if we were to ask you to eliminate the garage, it would be what?
Yes, that would be a significant blow to the project, and we would have to radically rethink how we approached it. Yeah. And I think, the concern that I heard from the town planner is a legitimate one, that, you approve these garages and then you turn around and they're habitable space that, it is on this site nearest to the wetlands. And so that's why, in thinking that through, we came up with the idea of putting a covenant to say, look, this is not going to change in the habitable space. It'll be on the building card so that, when the building inspector goes out to inspect, he'll have that note on the building card, on the property card.
And one other question, is this a prefab structure or is this a stick built home?
I think it's 6 building. Oh, is it? Oh, sorry, it's not.
Is it Mark?
Yeah.
It's a nice looking.
Yeah, it is.
It is, yeah. Nice looking. Any other questions before we go to the planning department? Board members, Terry? No?
Bamboo's not easy to get out.
Yeah.
But at least it's mostly it's in the construction area, the disturbed
Yeah,
area.
they
So
take it out.
it's probably not going to be that bad. I was thinking the same thing.
The grass is over the septic or something.
Yeah,
So they'll be able, that septic will get up the roots on it. For sure, in the house.
Okay, let's go. Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you.
You can believe it again, well, there's the planning department again. So let me just start off by kind of describing the area a little bit. As we've heard, the lot has a significant amount of disturbed vegetation on it between the bamboo, the devil's walking stick, mile a minute. It was a job getting down there to flag it. These wetlands in this area of town, they're all interconnected. They all at some point flow into the south end of Lake Montauk and are heavily influenced by upland development. The soils in the area, very low permeability rate. So if not properly mitigated, residential structures, impervious surfaces can stress the wetlands' ability to attenuate floodwaters and effectively function. So it's something to take into consideration that one of the largest precautionary measures that the town has are the setbacks in the NRSP jurisdiction. There really isn't a spot on this lot that a significant or really decently sized residence could exist that didn't need variances. There's no place on the lot where a sanitary system could be sited that wouldn't need variances. They have made changes to the application since initially reviewed. The GFA, when comparing the two sets of plans, has decreased, albeit 51 square feet when you look at the plan side by side. The calculations were 2250 in the initial and 2199 in those recently submitted. And they've also changed the bedroom count. When you compare the plans side by side, largely, they removed the closet, which then turned the bedroom into a bonus room, which is allowable by the county, but it doesn't count as a bedroom. So it hasn't substantially changed the living space. They have cut 2 feet off the structure, which is where that roughly 51 square feet comes from, and the 2-foot change in the setback for the wetland for the residents. It's the planning department's opinion they could observe a better setback. Recent applications in the area, we had 2 similar applications on Fairview, one more closely related to this than the other in terms of lot area. Those residences were 1,300 square feet. And also, significant scenic easements. Those lots were a little bit more sloped. And those residences were 68 feet from the wetlands. This one's 77. But, when weighing the applications to not only the neighborhood itself, it's also similar applications in similar circumstances in the area. And those applications had the same soils and the same, roughly the same slopes. And they were 1,300 square foot residences that ultimately got approved on those lots. So something to take into consideration that as compared to those lots, this would be a substantially larger house. Those lots also didn't have garages. This one does. I understand the need for storage, especially with what Andrew does for work. Finding a way to covenant it may subside some of the concern. But again, a garage more in line with the residence may get a better setback. And it's not to say this is going to happen, and it comes up a lot, but should they decide this is too small or move on or what have you, the new owners, they may not use it in the same fashion. It's always a concern. And would the board be comfortable with this level of development on this lot? That being said, this is the last vacant lot on South Change of Court, save one, but that one is town owned. This will be the last lot that would be developed. It would basically complete the ring around this wetland that's in this downslope, this depression. There are more non-conforming structures in the area. The property to the immediate west here had a board determination that allowed the shed to be constructed 20 feet from the wetland. So these are all things to consider in the area.
That wasn't this board, I don't think.
I believe it was within the last 5 years.
Really?
Yeah, I believe it was in the last 5 years. Something makes me want to say 2017, 2018. But yeah, I believe it was in the last 5 years. So the wetland is located, in this paper road area. There are a number of other, wetlands in the area. And these wetlands, because of the soils, because of the development, they really are subject to change, and the area is relatively dynamic, which should be a concern. And again, getting the structures as far away as we can. I commend them for the change in the sanitary. I commend them for the scenic easement, the removal of bamboo. But I do question the 77 feet for the residents inside, and if that can't be updated. The only other thing, I don't necessarily know if it got addressed, that I brought up is, just like the lots on Fairview, the outdoor living space was a concern on those lots. The amount of clearing that they wanted on those lots was a concern. This also has a very tight clearing boundary. They've mentioned they want to start a young family. They're going to need a little bit of outdoor space. So the only other thing I wanted to add was doing something similar to other jurisdictions, which is a split rail fence along the clearing boundary. That way it would help ensure to the board that this area wouldn't be encroached upon. A little more so than just leaving the vegetation as it is. Because, there's, again, I commend them on some of the changes they've made to the application, some of the mitigation they've offered. But I'd like to ensure that this clearing boundary on this, ecologically diverse and susceptible wetland is protected, and we can maintain the buffer that we have currently. With that, I leave myself open to any questions.
Thank you, Michael, for that thorough analysis. Board members? Any questions for Michael?
I do have one, Michael. When I'm visiting the site, it's hard to tell the vegetation, but the topo indicates that the land is sloping away from the roadway towards the back of the lot. Is there any indication that that slope is going to deliver water that normally would have been absorbed with some of the vegetation that was there for the wetlands? Is that going to go much further to the east rather than to the north? It's hard for me to.
It may, and it's hard to say. I remember the last time I was back there, really deep in it when we flagged it sometime in, I want to say it was March of 18. There were definitely areas of concern back there. It may push into that area that's currently cleared. So it may, and with the low permeability in the soils, if they find a depression, if some vegetation gets a root there, wetland may develop in the area, and that's kind of a concern. A relatively large one. We've had similar situations in similar soils and in other areas of Montauk, where we've got depressions in areas that we've got to keep an eye on for just such a thing.
With that in mind, would it make sense for us to recommend a catch basin for stormwater in some way to help alleviate this, what could be a natural flow into that area?
Absolutely. I mean, in more than just on the residents.
Well, I'm not sure that we have one picking up surface water on this drawing, and I'm wondering about to the rear of the house, if we would recommend that would help with regarding a certain amount of the area.
My question, there is a drywall back there?
There's a drywall there, yeah.
But my question is, isn't the easement?
The easement would protect the area back here.
Let's get vegetated, yeah.
And once this gets revegetated, it should help with that in terms of that slope down to that other property.
Yeah, you haven't received the re-veg plan yet, right? I
No.
don't see anything in the submission.
No, not to my knowledge.
And we'll let
Assuming
Andrew.
it would end up being a condition of approval, and then we would address it at that point.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Any other questions, Ed? Anyone?
No, I want to just back up, I think what Member Berger said, and that is it's going to be a difficult job taking out the bamboo and keeping it out. It's going to take a real effort because it doesn't leave, to leave much of a root mass and then have that problem again.
Yeah.
I know I was told that the applicant tried to clear a spot back in there and see it grew back in the days, which never does. So that's going to be a real project to get the bamboo eradicated completely.
It's gonna be quite a job. Hopefully by with all the disturbance that is gonna happen in that area between the house and the sanitary system, hopefully a lot of that root mass will come out. But it may be a problem that they will have to make, do some sort of maintenance on it in the coming years.
Probably have to go down almost 18 inches to really get to
But that will be disturbed 18 inches.
Yeah, they would,
Yeah. To
they
get
should get down there.
excavated to get there.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, thanks, Ed. Terry, anything?
No, I'm good with stuff.
Okay. And Andrew wants to have another
So-
comment. Thank you, Michael, for all your work on this.
Just to address a couple of things. One, we'd be happy to put a split rail fence if that's something that would that the board thinks would be prudent here. We're also happy to provide a drainage plan with a catch basin showing to address specifically the concern that you raised. And then finally, just a note on the GFA. The GFA is larger, but what we tried to do here, right, is the footprint is a 1,500 square foot footprint. And for instance, the property that the plan referenced, 15 Ferncroft, is a 1,320 square foot one-story house. So the footprint's the same. And then what we said that is we said we'll also limit the number of bedrooms to three to address what is generally the problem with large GFAs. So the balance we're trying to strike here, right, is to provide a house that somebody can have a family in and live comfortably here year round against really being thoughtful about the wetlands. So that's what we've tried to do, and I just want to put that point out there. And then address the spillway offense in the drainage plan if that would be helpful to the board.
Okay, Andrew, those two items, we didn't discuss it earlier, Michael brought them up. So those are all his recommended project conditions in the TAM, so we're good with all of the project conditions that are referenced in the TAM. Is that included the split rail fence and a catchment basement?
Yes, well, those two we are.
Among
and
other
I'm
things,
just
I
gonna
just
look
want to
over
make sure you're good
shading.
with
She's
all of
not,
them.
yeah, to look at.
You're good with all of them.
Okay, thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Great. Ed, would you like to hold this up?
Yes, so this goes in public hearing.
Yes, and the written record, as a public hearing in the record.
And I'd like to make a motion in the case of Angela Foley and Molly Nolan, is 22 South Geneva Court, tax map 300-28-3-13, public hearing this time in the written record.
Second.
I concur.
I concur.
And I concur as well. Okay. You good, Andrew?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, thank you all, and good luck to the newlywed. You'll hear within 62 days, you'll have a written determination. Okay, probably be a lot sooner actually. Okay.
Who has more equipment, the tennis or the fishing?
She does. Because I'm in the boat right now.
Thanks for coming, you all.
Yeah, good to see you.
Michael, thank you for your work on that.
Engineer response.
Okay, moving along here. We'll move on. Next we have under other decisions, we have item 4 under the work session portion. Item DI, we have a report. This is regarding 39 Hoppin Avenue LLC at 39 Hoppin Avenue, Montauk, tax map number 300-31-2-2. And we have a report received from the Rainier Group engineer, and Tyler is going to walk us through that. Good evening, Tyler.
Doing well. How are you doing?
Great, thanks.
So the board has actually received two things on this. One, the first thing was from the Rainier Group, which was in response to the board requesting additional information as to what the impact of what had occurred on this property had on neighboring parcels. And if you, to catch you up, there was a sanitary system placed back here on the property, and the grade was raised without the board's knowledge at that time. And there were some flooding issues going on the neighboring property to the east. So the board wanted some additional information as to what occurred and how could it be alleviated, if at all. The Rainier Group got back to us as the town engineer and essentially stated that if the property was graded from a higher elevation on the east side and a lower elevation on the west side to help divert some of that water coming up from the south away from the east, that would help alleviate flooding issues on the eastern property. And in response to that, the applicant got sent in this plan to the board, which essentially states just that, leaving the grade as is on the east side and then sloping it down in a way about 1.5 feet down towards the west. So any water coming up from the south and your runoff coming in from the south will then be diverted over to the east, or to the west, I'm sorry, towards the wetland. Hopefully alleviating those flooding issues.
Is there any more disturbance by creating that grading?
Well, I mean, they're gonna have to obviously pull up the revegetation that they had done, and then redo the revegetation. That being said, it should help alleviate the issues. Essentially, the engineer looked at what happened, and the crest of the property shifted after they did the work, which then created more runoff towards me. So this should help stop that change from what occurred. And of course, once that vegetation then takes hold and over years, that should help improve it as well, uptaking more of that water and preventing it from running up even more. They also have installed their leaders and gutters and dry wells since we first had flooding issues as well. So that should help alleviate that as well, I would imagine.
And I'm sorry, you may have mentioned they're going to be taking care of the deck issue in the driveway, the parking.
Yeah, after conversations, it seems like that either they'll come in and ask for relief, but I have a feeling that they're just going to just fix them and then go for the CO.
Could you refresh us on the
Sure.
other issues that were?
The driveway, that's how it was supposed to look. So that was how it was approved. The driveway isn't there. It's sort of more in the center of the property and larger, has like an L shape. This deck was built closer to the side yard lot line, also closer to the wetlands, which would require different variances. And there's a shed underneath it. So all those things would require different relief than what was granted.
Okay, have you heard back on that?
We had some brief discussions about it. I haven't heard anything concrete, I don't believe. I have a feeling that they're going to be fixing most of the issues, if not all of them. So I don't think they'll be back in for an
So
application.
aside from drainage, they couldn't get a CO until these other things occurred.
Correct.
Also.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm a little skeptical on this, where they clearly say nothing's going to be changed on the properties on Agnew Avenue that seem to be somewhat directing water too. And I read the engineer's report, and I guess he's the engineer, but they talk about the swale, and I don't know, a little concerned that may not cut it. I know we said the revegetation hasn't fully, grown in yet.
Right.
But I think in following up on Member Berger's point, if we look at the survey that was sent out here, the engineer's report, and we're going to be pitching towards the wetlands, and he said there's a comment that no disturbance will happen on any of the homeowners on Agnew. There's absolutely very little to no room to create this pitch. I mean, it's down to a zero in the corner, so water that was coming down in that corner and was spilling in an easterly direction, and that was the neighbor to the east who was having a problem with water in the basement. And the water that was coming in and flooding. And we don't know how much that would have happened before this construction, but it's not to this extent anyway.
Right.
This correction is here, and again, it's an engineer's report, and following up with what Member Berger said, we certainly have to respect it. I find it hard to believe we can create enough of a change here to change this significantly. Nonetheless, you know what I'm saying here is that there's very little room to work. When you're there on the site, you see that what was put to cover the septic comes right very close to the property line. The survey shows us that there's a little distance. But this is going to be quite a bit of creative work to make this happen. And then we can show respect for the engineer's report and accept it. But I've got to tell you that just the site test, looking at it in the place, I wonder that this is going to be effective. The same question that was raised by Member Berger.
You know, this is an interesting dilemma because we did scrutinize this property in detail, right? And sometimes, even sometimes I feel in a catch-22 where the health department will not approve something until there's a ZBA decision. And then when it does get I understand the pitch of that's required for this septic, but if these things aren't approved and we have making decisions, we can end up with a site like this that is altered. So it is sort of a catch-22. I would say at a zoning board, we should at least make sure there's an engineer design that's before us, even if it's that's ready to go to the permit. At least there's some design
there's some design thought to the property.
So proper drainage can be allowed for it, like from the get-go, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Is this the case,
Go ahead, Ed.
is this the case that the originally planned septic system looks different than the one that was installed, and therefore we wouldn't have known, the board wouldn't have known about it before?
Essentially, that there was no grade change proposed when the board had looked at it, but they required an update to the survey as part of the determination. So the approved survey showed the grade change, but the board had never seen it. Because it was submitted after the determination was rendered.
Yeah. So Roy makes a good point there. I reviewed this with Tyler earlier, and my comment is that it was the same thought, Roy, that they're going to have to adhere to Suffolk County Department of Health standards with regard to the coverage and the 1 foot of the cap. So it's a tricky situation here. But I would defer to the engineers that, and I read it thoroughly. It seems like this is going to make a difference for sure. It's going to be it's a tricky one.
Yeah. For sure. Maybe going forward, we shouldn't allow for it. They'll have to have it later.
Yeah, exactly. And as Roy says, just getting a thought so that we can look at it and know from our experience, just in the planning department can look at it to know that it can be.
Yeah, and I think what the board had requested the survey updated for was like the driveway. It had nothing to do with the sanitary.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't even something that anybody looked at because they weren't expecting it to change.
Yeah.
All we were looking for was the driveway gets shortened. I think that's what it was.
This was out there for a while, because, right, this was
Well,
denied
we
at first. We
denied
denied it
it
first, so this probably went through the IA system change.
I think it did.
Yeah, Lisa had this, back in like 16 or something like that.
Yeah.
I guess my first question just is to beat this dead horse. And that is that the house that's directly to the east is the reason we're having this discussion because of the flooding that occurred. Not flooding, was an empty lot. And we're to think now that this small solution is somehow going to stop that or help it.
Yeah.
And it's very hard when you see the amount of material that's there. There would have been some horizontal passage of water that's not going to happen. So when we're all done, I'm not sure what we've done for the house to be resolved.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, I guess our action here is if we feel that this is sufficient, council, right, or entirely that we would, if the majority of the board feels this is sufficient, this would go on. Is that correct, council?
Well,
There's still a lot of things to address.
why
so-
did it came back before the board for a rehearing?
No, they requested a CO
Yeah, they requested the CO.
and we discovered the
They
issues.
discuss, and they,
So
we
they'll
brought
need
to
them,
the board.
they'll need it modified because this is not, this doesn't match the approved plans, correct?
Well, and neither does the other.
well, yeah, so, yeah, the change is here.
There's a number
They're
of
not going to get a C of O until they, and we have to make sure that this is all very clear with the building department.
Well, if
Until the deck and the
they can't get a
driveway are-
C of O that doesn't match their approval.
No, that's what we're saying, we
So
have,
at some point, when all the changes are made, they could come in and whomever's district it is in could make a motion to put it on for a rehearing to modify the determination to incorporate all these changes.
Well, or they can revert the changes back on the other items too.
Or they,
Back
I
to
mean,
what was
whatever,
approved.
they either go, in order to get a C of O, they either have to match what the determination is, or they have to, if they're going to keep some of these changes, they have to get the board approval.
right, so it's, the next would be for them to come back to us, I think. And then the question is, if the majority of this board feels that this is a better situation for the grading at that, we would adopt this as part of that approval, correct?
Yeah, after a rehearing.
After a rehearing, and assuming they're going to come
And
back
if there
with a
are,
proper
if there are
deck.
too many changes, the board, or you don't have a unanimous vote for a rehearing, then they would have to put in a new application for basically for what the changes are. They would have to go for a new determination.
Right. So
Don't know
I
if
guess,
it's at that
Carly,
level.
I imagine it will be made clear, you're working with them. They should understand that unless they plan on building that driveway and that deck exactly as approved and getting rid of the shed.
Right.
It's a whole new deal, I think,
Right.
just so they're clear.
Well, I mean, I guess the driveway could be a modification, but I don't think the board probably wouldn't entertain that type of modification because it was an issue when you first approved it to make it smaller as it was.
Right.
But certainly the shed and the deck can't be a modification because they're closer to wetlands or didn't exist at all.
Right.
Right.
So if it's just the sanitary, it's possible it's a modification, but the rest of it probably wouldn't be. As I imagine, the board's thinking so.
So council, should they be getting a letter from this board stating that, or do we work with the? let them
Well,
continue working with the letter?
here's my question. Is it likely that it would come on for a rehearing? Otherwise, they probably should start the process of putting a new application in. I mean, if there's so many different changes, there's no point in continuing to do one at a time. They should
Well,
put
they
in
have-
a new application.
Yeah, but they have the right to come back with a proper driveway and deck as approved. That would make their life a lot easier.
Oh, they certainly can do it.
That's what I'm
They-
saying.
Yeah, they could, if they can't, I mean, I think that their discussions probably should be, Tyler's can discuss with them that if,
That's what I was getting
you
at,
can
yeah.
put in a rehearing, you can ask for a rehearing if the only change is this grading.
Right.
Then you can ask that it go on for a motion for a rehearing on that.
Right.
Anything more than that, you might as well put in a new application.
So my question was procedurally, they don't have to.
Except there's a third choice there, make it be what was approved to begin with.
Well, yes, but they can't undo the grading.
But as it stands,
Aside from the grading, they can
As
make
it
the other
stands-
go.
As
So
it
then
stands
if all it is the grading, then they can put in a motion, or they can ask this board to consider a motion for a rehearing.
Or modification for this.
For
and to
modification.
approve this right here, that's what I was getting at.
But
Right.
as it stands now, Terry, being that you're into your district, would you recommend with all these issues that we go for a modification or come for a rehearing?
Well, we haven't given them the
We
choice.
can't do
Yeah,
it.
the
They
applicant's a
haven't come,
choice.
they haven't asked for anything.
I guess
They
the,
just did the other stuff on their own.
Right.
I
This
guess,
was the only thing that came in front of us when they asked for. the
Right, and I would suggest
CFO.
that you would not be,
I would not look favorable. on
right, so
it.
most likely it's gonna come back to a
Yeah.
rehearing is what I'm saying.
no, no. Rehearing is when it's a modification. If,
I mean,
You mean a new application.
new
new
application.
application.
So if it's a new application, then it might behoove them to just do that at this point. Because it has to be a unanimous agreement to do a rehearing.
Okay, I'm gonna
On
try
a
some of this up.
modification.
I'm gonna try some of this up so we can move along and see if I'm correct, Nancy Linda, please. It seems to me that if you're okay and if I'm fine, I'm sure the board is, if Tyler relates to them, they should watch this hearing, that's what they should do, obviously. Then it is, the next step, it's up to the applicants to come back. And it's fairly obviously that the more prudent plan would be to come back with an approved driveway that was approved, I mean, the driveway installed, a deck that was altered because they built it incorrectly and illegally. And that sort of thing, and the shed is removed, and then they're coming back and we're having a rehearing for modification so that we can possibly approve this regrading that we probably want to see
I
better
think
than
that's
what's
the right
existing.
direction.
And I want to move it, the reason I want to move this along, make sure they know when they're cognizant, is that the neighbor is getting the water right now. We want to kind of make this thing, and right now, the driveway's not as it should be, and the door's a deck. So are we all good with that, board members?
Thank you for summarizing.
Okay. Council, we all good with that, is it?
Yep.
Okay. So Tyler, thank you for your work on that and for working with these applicants. Okay, next. Okay, we have next the extension of time
There should be a photo area.
for Agello at 19 Fenwick Road in Montauk, tax map number 300-19-8-22.1. And Brian Frank was handling this application, and Tyler is pinch hitting this evening on that. And thank you again, Tyler.
Yeah, I'll do my best on this one. It's a bit of a complicated extension of time, we'll say. So that's the subject property. The owner, or used to, or currently owns this property as well. Is there a different
Where
one?
is that?
I'm not sure what year that one is. That's the most recent one. That's the one that sort of makes it complicated. So for the subject property on the left or the northwest, they have had two determinations. The current one that they're requesting an extension of time for was in 2007. That determination granted an approval to construct a 1,700 square foot two-story residence and a sanitary system on parcel land containing freshwater wetlands. There was also a 2015 application which granted approval to merge those two lots together, legalize some of the existing structures on the property to the right, which was already approved, and then also construct a garage and pool house on the unimproved lot, which is now has things constructed on it. So both the 2007 and 2015 determination required the scenic easements, and the 2015 determination required revegetation and the filing of covenants and restrictions. It appears, based on the aerials, obviously, that some sort of accessory structure has been constructed on the 13 Fairview property, which is the one on the left, as well as a driveway. And we were unable to locate a corresponding building permit. It doesn't look like there was any building permit ever issued other than a building permit in order to clear that part of that property back in 2013. And that was part of the 2007 determination. The location of the accessory structures does not appear to correspond with the location of the approved garage or pool house, which was approved in 2015. Since the 2007 permit pertains to a new residence, and the 2015 one had to do with accessory structures and combining the two lots together, they both can't exist at the same time. It's a sort of a one or the other situation. You're either merging the lots and creating these other structures, or you're building a house on this lot, which they haven't done. They've started an accessory structure or built an accessory structure. So it may be necessary to obtain an as-built survey of at least the 13 Fenwick property in order to identify, and also to identify what permit conditions, if any, have been implemented. Scenic easement, covers and restrictions, what essentially is going on. So that's essentially where it's at. There's two different determinations.
So they're asking for extension of time on the earlier.
On the one for a residence.
How can they do this? How can that be though? But doesn't the later determination supersede the earlier one?
Well, you could not do it. You could build a one-story residence.
But is the earlier one valid if there's one after it that is superseded?
It is, unless it's specifically.
Is it valid? That's my question.
Yeah, I believe so, unless it specifically says, the earlier one is now non-existent.
2015 is when they asked to merge the properties. The
Correct.
properties didn't automatically merge. If
No.
They were in a single common
They're single and
ownership.
separate, yeah.
They're separate.
Well, single and common ownership, but they're separate properties.
But doesn't that automatically merge the properties?
Unless they're
If
undersized for zoning. If they're undersized for zoning, then they automatically merge. But if they conform to zoning, then they remain in perpetuity.
And they can also, so I have a few comments, Tyler, and they can also, as you know, they can build accessory structures if they're owned by the same. If they're
Only if they merge them. You can't get an accessory structure unless you merge.
You can.
I'm saying after it's merged.
You can do accessory structures.
All right, I mean,
There's a
after
rule in the
it's
code that allows you to have an accessory structure if you own the adjoining property, and you have to have room for a principal eventually.
merged. Yeah, that's what I was referring to.
Yeah, it's sort of
There's an
separate.
exception, but there's other things you have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's certain things you can.
They haven't complied with that.
So a few comments, Tyler, because we're gonna have to move this one along. This is, a few comments here. First of all, the CNRs for the residents that's there, I believe they did, I don't know if they're filed, but it's fairly obviously they have not done the revegetation on that project. To me, this is all going to come back to some sort of a letter and with council's input, obviously, and you're going to the applicants, because there are things here. I believe the pool house that was constructed without a building permit wasn't even constructed in the area that was previously approved, correct, Tyler?
Say it again?
The pool house that they built without a building permit was not constructed in the area.
Oh, yeah, it appears that way, correct.
Yeah, and I went over this carefully with
But-
Brian as well.
But if they built the pool
Wait,
house.
I'm not,
without-
hold on, I'm not finished yet.
I'm
Sorry.
going back to-
I'm not finished yet. I just want to finish it first. So, I think we need a correspondence with these people that we are going to have a proper survey, an updated survey to see what's legal, what's not legal. I would like to have that survey overlaid of what was approved, and we could request that in the correspondence over what was approved and what is there. And they have to come back to us because this needs a lot of oversight here. This is just kind of there's a lot going on here. And I don't think we should waste a lot of this board's time on this without demanding that they come back to us. And this also would be noticed, if we don't hear back from them, this should be noticed with code enforcement because they've built an illegal pool house without a building permit. So those are my comments so that we don't waste a lot of time going over all of this stuff.
Okay, yeah.
It's so much out of order.
So you want the updated survey overlaid with the approved on the 2007 or on the 2015
Well,
or
maybe-
one of each?
Exactly, I think one of each, it's like, what the heck,
Or they come back to us legalizing the pool house with a merged lot.
or that too.
Well,
I think basically what the board needs is to ask them which one, I mean, if they're looking to renew 2007, does that mean they're abandoning 2015?
Yes,
They
I
really
agree.
need to give us their
Which
intent.
means they gotta take down that pool house.
This is
And
my
if
primary
their
structure.
intent is to go with 2007, then they need whatever that they did even without actually getting building permits, that would seem to be furthering the 2015 determination need to be reversed.
And again, when they do, when a
Can't do a
lot,
little bit of both.
what did they put on the extension of time application? Any
Just
information?
extending.
What? Just extend?
Yeah, the extension of time usually is just extending it. It's usually, it's not a
So they
detail,
don't,
but they were looking to extend the
my
2007.
take on this, but Brian sent the email. I did not get to that.
well, you know what, I wanted to say,
Had a discussion with him. I didn't have the opportunity.
no, I was gonna say, maybe we
And I
table for a
wanted to
week.
do that
Yeah, Brian mentioned that.
Before we start that, we want this, we want
Yeah.
that. I really want to look at.
Well,
it.
I apologize. Brian, we discussed that today, Terry. This is so complex, there's so much here, and there's a lot to analyze, so I'm fine with tabling the discussion for a
I think
week.
I got up to page 5.
Right, yeah, yeah, because I don't want to kind of push it, but, you know what I mean, there's a lot to digest here. Okay, so shall we just agree that we will table this?
Yeah, I'd like
We'll
to
keep it
look
on
at
the agenda
this
for
more
next week.
thoroughly for next week and then see if we
Okay,
can
Kyle.
put something together that.
I agree completely, yeah. And then we can get a thorough, everyone's input, we can get a thorough list of our requests, and Tyler can we can pass that on, or probably be better, or in a memo. But if we don't hear back on this, again, I would want this to go to code enforcement, because this is not correct.
Well, I think, you know.
We'll let it go. Let
One
the
or more
process
of
go.
those things is gonna happen,
Yeah.
but I'd really like to look at it with her.
I agree completely. Thank you, Terry. Okay. Thank you, Tyler, for your work on that. So we are going to put, the minutes are going to be finalized next week, so we'll table those as well. Next, we have the resolutions.
And those are here. Yours and pass them on. Isn't one, no,
No.
neither of them are here. Probably. Yeah, they're both Amagansett.
Yeah.
They're both yours.
Okay, so resolutions, we'll start off. We have Laura McCall on tax map number 300-109-1-8. And this was heard April 6, 2021. And the purpose of this application is to construct 599 square feet of additions, approximately 599 square feet of additional decking and an upgraded sanitary system. We're less than 6,317 square feet of dune vegetation and a parcel land containing wetland surface waters, dunes, and dune vegetation. And you all recall this well down at Napeag, we know the area of Napeag Harbor Road. And a complex application that came back modified. and the board agreed unanimously to approve this application as amended. And so I would like to make a motion with regard to Laura McCall, tax map number 300-109-1-8, to approve the determination as written.
Second.
I concur.
Thank you. Next, we have Sands Capital Holdings LLC, tax map number 300-176-8-22. This was heard March 23rd, 2021. And the hearing date was. The purpose of the application is to facilitate a lot line modification transferring. I'm sorry, did we hear this on March 23rd? Oh, this is the original, going way back, council, to the original, the March 23rd date? That's when we did hear it, huh? It seems like
Wasn't that
more
the
recent.
hearing date? Yeah, that was the hearing date.
Doesn't it? Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought it was more recent than that. Okay. Okay, pardon me. So the purpose of this application was to facilitate the lot line modification, transferring 13,722 square feet of property, 10,692 square feet of lot area above the bluff crest from tax map number 300-176-8-23, 189 Marine Boulevard to the subject parcel, allowing for an existing 1,280 square feet, two-bedroom cottage on 189 Marine Boulevard to be situated on the subject property. And this was, they were looking for, the variance here was with regard to allowing more than the maximum number of uses permitted on residential property, one residence use and one residential use for two residential uses or any other relief necessary. Board members, myself, Tim Brenneman, Roy Deline, and Ed Johan approved this application, and dissenting was board member Berger. I'd like to make a motion with regard to Sands Capital Holding LLC, tax map number 300-176-8-22, to approve the determination as written.
Second. Concur.
I'll concur.
Thank you. Okay. Let's see, I believe, council, anything else?
We do have executive session,
You have that.
so we can close out the public portion of the meeting, and so that LTV will not come back on after our executive session, so they can finish the broadcast at this point. So it would be a motion to go to executive session, and then following executive session, close out the meeting.
Thank you. Roy?
Yes,
Would you mind?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to go into executive session and thereafter adjourn the meeting for the hearing for the town of East Hampton zoning board of appeals meeting, zoning board of appeals for Tuesday, July 13th at 8:12 p.m.
Second.
Concur? I'll concur.
And I concur. Thank you, Roy. Thank you, council. Thank you, Michael and Tyler and Kyle.